Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome. Certainly a very exciting day for the entire Rangers organization and for Peter and his entire family. His wife, Kristen, sons Peter and Jack, and daughter Elizabeth. A very special welcome from me to New York and to the New York Ranger family. Thank you for being here and for all your support. As I said, when I started this process, I wanted to have a very detailed and thorough search. I'm happy to report that search led to Peter Laviolette. I truly believe his resume speaks for itself and commands respect on many different levels. It's my honor and privilege to welcome, introduce, and congratulate New York Rangers head coach Peter Laviolette.
My wife told me when I got up here, she said to make sure that you smile. And I said, I'm not a very good smiler. I said, I frown so much that, but I said, I'll make sure I smile. So. Let me start by saying I'm thrilled to be here as the coach of the New York Rangers. I understand the history and importance of being able to coach an original six team. We have a really good team and really good players. And my staff and I will work tirelessly pushing towards a common goal of bringing the Stanley Cup to New York. I'd like to thank Jim Dolan and Chris Drury for this opportunity. This is one of the best franchises in sports, and it's in the best city, one of the best cities in the world. I'm appreciative and excited to be here to be able to coach this team. I want to thank the Rangers for bringing my family up here. As Chris said, my wife Kristen, my two boys Peter and Jack, and my daughter Elizabeth are here. 25 years of coaching, so many moves, and yet they still came. So it's really good to have their love and their support like I've had for so many years. I'm glad you guys are here and get to share this with me, so thank you. My family went online, I think it was eBay, in pursuit of the ever-elusive Laviolette 39 jersey. With only 12 games played, they had a difficult task and not much luck. And they poked some fun at me. They ribbed me a little bit about only playing 12 games. But I let them know that they couldn't find the jersey, not because I was here for just a minute. It's just that it was in such demand after being named head coach of the New York Rangers. I've never really thought about my 12 games much in the NHL. I think about myself more as 11 years in the minor leagues and 25 years of coaching. And so that's 36 years of hockey with just a small bit in the NHL. But this is where my NHL journey started, here in New York. So for me to be back here, for me to tell you that this means a lot to me, it won't truly reflect how proud I am and how humbled I am to be given this chance to give the city, to come back to the city of New York and to be able to coach this team, the New York Rangers. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So
There it is. No wonder I couldn't find it. There it is.
39.
Thank you.
Switch on it.
I'll start with Arthur. Peter, what was this kind of process like? Maybe a little bit longer than you would have liked to get a job, but what do you feel about this team? You've seen them up close for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a big job and a big opportunity, and it should be thorough. The players that are here in place and the team that we have is really exciting. And I kind of said it when I was first opened up here. to be able to come back to the city of New York and coach a team like this is really exciting. It's a good team and good players, and to get that opportunity, I'm really excited about it. So, like I said, it was a thorough interview process, and it should be. It's to be the head coach of the New York Rangers.
Molly?
Chris, what made Peter stand out during the process?
Well, he's someone I wanted to talk to right away. When the job opened up, and as I said, I wanted a detailed, thorough process. And as Peter said, it's a big job and it's really an important job. And as I went through the process, it just became clear to me all his attributes as a coach and as a person, made sense for our team.
Larry?
Peter, are you a coach who comes with a certain set of principles and beliefs, and your players have to adapt to them, or do you adapt somewhat to the personality?
I think that you always have to adapt, Larry. Like you have to be able to see what you have and where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and you have to play to that a little bit. But I also have values of what I think is important with regard to a team. It's the thoughts of how we're going to play and the identity that we're going to play with. I've found that a lot of times that players can adapt to that. And that doesn't mean that certain situations or certain opponents or certain parts of the schedule you don't make adjustments and you don't make changes. But there has to be a clear-cut plan on what it is that we're doing. That's my job to communicate that. It's my job to hold players accountable to that. And sure, there's always a little bit of adjustment and adaptation, but when you can get a team on the same page to play a brand of hockey that you feel or that I feel can be successful, I found there to be success that follows.
And can you give your core principle that leads to success, or two or three?
Yeah, so for me, it's always been. So I guess to your point that I have been able to find success or some sort of success, with a couple of other teams, or even going back to the Islanders where you didn't experience ultimate success, but you took a team that hadn't made the playoffs in a few years and able to drive them and push them. And for me, it's always been a little bit more of an aggressive approach. I think that you have to play good defense, and you see that for teams that win Stanley Cups, defense is always a priority, and you have to be able to play good in your defensive zone and good defense. But for me, it's about the attack. It's about pressuring. It's about puck pursuit. It's about the battle level, the compete level, the grit. It's that grind in the game that makes teams great. And so I think that you can't just flip a switch on that. That has to be talked about now. It has to be taught in training camp. It has to be worked on through the exhibition games, and it has to be pushed through the entire season, so that it's not something that you're asking to change or to flip a switch to be able to play playoff hockey. It's so that you're ready. You prepared yourself the whole year to play playoff hockey.
Peter, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Just to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, this is a team that's had success the last couple of years.
Yeah.
In the playoffs. They had a nice run 2 years ago.
Yeah.
For them to take the next step, obviously that's the goal. You touched on wanting to win a Stanley Cup. How do you envision helping this group get there? What do you see from this group that they do well, and what do you see that they need to do better to help them take that step?
Yeah. So there's I grew up in Massachusetts. My mom and dad are blue collar people. They work really hard, and I think that when you're around that, it becomes generational. If you're observant of it every day on what it takes to be a hard-working person, I think that there's a lot of skill and a lot of talent on this team, from the goaltender to the back end to the forwards, and we definitely need to embrace that, because you find that the teams that go deep into the playoffs and win championships, they're loaded with skill, and so that has to be a part of it. I'm not talking about what I'm about to say is not trying to take away from that in any manner, but when you watch the playoff games right now, the Final Four and the Final Two, it's just a reminder that the compete inside the game is what makes teams great. It drives them to success. And so I don't think that that's something that you can just ask for. I think that you have to practice that on a daily basis. It has to become habit. It has to become your identity, part of the DNA of who you are. And it has to start in training camp, and it has to be held to a level of accountability. And when you have that, and you have the skill, that's how teams push on and they compete for Stanley Cups, win Stanley Cups, and become really good hockey teams.
Go to Bruce. Peter, congratulations.
Thank you.
What's your message to the New York fans in terms of what kind of team they are going to see this year, the kind of team that you're going to put on the ice?
My message, I guess, to everybody is let's go to work. Let's get working. And like I said, I think that we have really good pieces in place, but to me, it's about that work ethic that drives teams. And so I think that the messaging for me with the players is that we're going to start working in training camp, and we're going to take it through the season and try to prepare ourselves for the playoffs and a push.
We'll go to Dan Rosen.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
You mentioned a lot of that's the blue collar approach, that compete.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though this roster, the way it's, because you also mentioned the skill that's on this team, which is obvious. Do you think that that skill can mesh with that style of play with the group that you have now to get it going right away, or is this something that's going to have to be?
Well, I definitely think, probably to what Larry's mentioned, I definitely think it's a learned habit. But I do think, I 100% think that this can be part of a team's identity. I mean, just look at past champions. Tampa Bay went back to back. They're loaded with talent, but they didn't win just because of that talent. And so I think that when you work on the trait and the habits of the game, I think that, yeah, you can be. Yes, this team can play that way. And that's the objective going into training camp, is to push that.
I'm over here.
Hi.
Hi. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
I'm just curious about whether you're going to be meeting with some of the veteran guys, over the summer and before training camp, just kind of sort of explain to them your philosophies and what you expect.
Well, I just met Adam Fox, so that was cool. That I started to make phone calls. It's been, like I said, we went through an interview process that it wasn't about, even though it seemed like it was substantial because it was in the newspapers. I wasn't calling players, and I wasn't reaching out, and I wasn't communicating. And so since I've gotten the job, I started to establish lines of communication with the players just to reach out to them and get to know them. And then, I always find that when you're in here before training camp and they're going about training and doing their thing, there's always, you're always seeing players and there's conversation and you chat and whatever. You can't coach them or anything like that, but you can start to establish a line of communication and start to develop relationships with the players. And then obviously those relationships build through the course of a year. And so to answer your question is I have started that, but I'm not there yet. Hopefully by the month I'll have reached out to everybody. It's got to do with staff members as well, staff that's here, staff that we're looking for, players that are here, and conversations with Chris and the management team. And so there's lots of people that when you come into a new organization, it's a lot of meeting people.
We'll go to Andrew, and we'll get time for a couple more.
Hey, Chris, as a GM, what goes into a GM coach working partnership? How quickly can it develop? How much flexibility is needed on both ends? Obviously, I'm assuming it's crucial to the success of the team. And also, as much as you're willing to share, what's sort of the optimum template for, you know, a coach and GM working together?
Well, I think you said the key word. It's partnership. You know, we're working together, and I'm picking his brain on different things already, and he's going to do the same, you know, with me on players and different thoughts. And you know, I think you got to be on the same page in a lot of different ways. And you know, he's only been officially hired for a week, but it already feels like it's been a long time. I was fortunate to play for Peter a long time ago in an Olympics and at a World Championship, so we have a little bit of history. But you know, it feels like we're in lockstep already in what we want to accomplish here and how we want to accomplish it.
Arthur? Peter, been doing this a long time in the NHL. How much have the players changed, and how much has that forced you to change with how you deal with them, what sort of things you bring to bear, video-wise, systems-wise? Has it adapted a lot for you over the last 20+ years?
Well, I think, definitely. It's definitely changed. I mean, I think about, you know, I spoke with Benoit Allaire yesterday. He was telling me about Jacques Laperriere. Jacques and I worked together back in Boston under Pat Burns. We were assistant coaches, and Jacques was an unbelievable coach. You know, didn't want to do much with the computer, but he would tell you, he would bring you in, and he would show you exactly what you needed to do or how you needed to do it. He was a great communicator. He's the type of guy that could go out there and run practice for hours and never need a drill from anybody. He just had it up in his head. He had so much experience, and you know, the game's changed. The staffs have gotten bigger. The technology has gotten so much better. The game continually changes, and I think that you have to continue to change with all of that, and you have to be up to speed with all of that. And so I think there's been a lot of change in 25 years with regard to just coaching itself. But the game has changed, the coaches have changed, the staffs have changed. I think there's been significant.
Molly? Peter, welcome.
Hey, Molly. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. This team is such a blend, veteran stars and young talent.
Yeah.
How do you balance that win now initiative with also developing young talent and creating space for opportunities for younger players?
Yeah, I think it's a really good balance and blend right now. You know, teams in the past that I've found success with, I think they've had that balance and that blend. You know, I think back to Carolina, there was a lot of young players that were in place, but there was a lot of good veteran players as well. We had Rod Brindamore in there, and you know, Glenn Wesley was in there, Brett Hedican. We had good leaders, but then there was a lot of young players as well. Eric Stahl had a 100-point year, and Cam Ward won the MVP in the playoffs, and Justin Williams was a young player, and so there's a good blend there. The same in Nashville. We had guys like Mike Fisher and Shea Weber, good quality veteran players, but there was also a lot of young players on board, like, you know, Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi and Ryan Ellis, Matthias Ekholm, and so that blend, again, you know, even in Philly, there was you had Chris Pronger and Timonen, and Lappy was in there, and just great veteran forwards, and you had the younger players like Richards and Carter, and so I think there's always a balance and blend on good teams. Those teams can find success, and I do think that personnel is here that can find success.
We'll finish with Dan, last one.
Peter, actually, two questions. One, do you have a staff in place?
Dan, we're working through that right now, and so, you know, because back to have you reached out to every player? Not yet, because there seems to be a lot of things to do in the day, and you're on the phone a lot, and you're in Zoom meetings and calls and that sort of thing, and so just like the players and reaching out to the players, we're working at that right now, and when we have that information and the staff in place, we'll certainly pass that along to you guys.
And to just last one to play off of Molly's question, two players in particular. This is not about two guys, obviously, but Kaapo Kakko and Alexis Lafreniere, both guys, a lot invested. If they're both here, you know, number one pick, a number two pick, do they need more opportunity, top six roles, power play roles, on a team that has guys that can play in those roles too, to find that next level, to take that next step in their careers? Do they need those opportunities?
I do think that when you're talking about young players, and this is, you know, kind of why because you're right, it's off of Molly's question as well. Those young players do need an opportunity to grow. They have to be not given, but they have to be given the opportunity to be counted on more. And I think inside of a team, inside of the framework of a team, everybody wants to feel that responsibility. They want to feel valued with what they do. And you're talking about a couple players who are coming off, I think, maybe their best years, and they're still really young players. And there's a growth that goes with that. You certainly would like to see them take the next step, more minutes, maybe a little higher up the lineup, maybe more power play time. And so with that, there has to be opportunity. And so there'll be, these conversations will take place. I certainly would like that. And those opportunities will be there for them to grab that ice time and to push.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.